SV Math Teach back again, this time dealing with more information about linear equations. Now there are other ways to write linear equations than slope-intercept form, which you saw in the previous video on 2-3. So point-slope form is this form that looks like this. Y minus y sub 1 equals the slope times the quantity x minus x sub 1. And what it allows you to do is it allows you to take a point and substitute your x and your y in, and the slope and put it in, and then you have yourself an equation. So that's why they call it point-slope form. We'll look at one of those in a second. Standard form is ax plus by equals c. And there's some rules for standard form. Basically the rules are, and depending on your textbook you might get different rules. Heck, depending on your teacher you might get different rules. The rules that I always live by is that your x and your y have to be on the same side. The a, the b, and the c have to be integers. And a has to be positive. So those are the rules that I live by. X and y on the same side, a, b, and c integers, and a has to be non-negative. With that said, parallel lines and perpendicular lines. I learned this cool thing. Parallel lines and perpendicular lines, they have slope things in common. Let's imagine that you have the slope of a line that's 3, and you have a parallel line to it. It'll have a slope of 3 also. So if you see two slopes that are the same, that means those lines are parallel. Perpendicular, if you have one line that's a 3, the other line that's perpendicular to it will be negative. It'll be opposite, right? So in this case, positive and negative, and it'll be a reciprocal. They call this the opposite reciprocal. So in parallel lines, sometimes you'll see that indication where the second line is parallel to the first. In parallel, the slopes are the same. Perpendicular lines, they are opposite reciprocals. Now we have two questions on these as well. First, write an equation in standard form of a line with a slope of 3 that goes through 3, 9. Okay, so here's what I'm given. I'm given the slope and a point. So I'm going to use point-slope form. So y minus y sub 1 is m times x minus x sub 1. So let's try. Y minus 9 is, my slope is 3, and x minus, and then my x is 3 as well. Let's go ahead and get rid of that parentheses. 3x minus 9. The rule that I recall is that the x's and y's have to be on the same side. So I'm going to do this. The 9's have to be away from the x and y, so I'm going to add 9 to both sides. And my a value should be, so I do have integers, right? -3, +1, and 0. Those are all integers. However, I don't like that negative in front of the 3, so I'm going to multiply the whole thing by -1. And I'm going to turn this into 3x minus y equals 0. And that's it. That's all at once. Second question, write an equation of a line perpendicular. Okay, key, perpendicular. So I want that negative reciprocal or opposite reciprocal to this line through this point. Okay, so let's see, what do we want to do? I have a point. If I had the slope from here, then I'd be in business. So let's go ahead and calculate the slope, and I do that by solve for y. So x plus 2y is 6. Let's isolate the y. And we're in business. So 3 minus 1/2 of x. So my slope is -1/2. I want it perpendicular, so opposite reciprocal of -1/2 is positive 2/1. So positive 2. So this is the slope I want, and this is the point I want. So I'm going to use point-slope form. So y minus y sub 1, m times the quantity x minus x sub 1, y minus the 3, that's my y, is my slope is 2, and x minus my x sub 1, which is 8. Let's just clean this up. The truth is, if it just says write an equation, by the way, you could just stop here because this is actually an equation. I don't really think that's what anyone means, though. I'm going to clean this and make it in slope-intercept form, just because that's a pretty common format. And we're done, right? It's not standard form, it's slope-intercept form, but I think that's a nice format to finish on.